Ooh. Okay, so today I decided, you keep distracting me with your noises. Okay, so I decided to talk about James because the past few Bible studies we keep talking about James. So I thought I'd make my own about James because hey, it's like double learning. And today we're mainly going to focus on trials and perseverance. So a little bit of background on the author. James is the one writing. He's writing to the 12 tribes of Israel, and he's the brother of Jesus. James was the leader of the early church in Jerusalem. So he was a pretty influential guy, and he knew a bunch of stuff. And well, if you have Jesus as your brother, that's pretty awesome. You learn some stuff. So some of the main things that the book of James talks about is trials, how to live out your faith, the laws of loving one another, wise speech, and wealth. So James, the Bible that I have, it's like a teen study Bible, and it says James is kind of like a spiritual doctor because he knows what's going on and he knows how to fix Christians that have kind of become corrupt and living in the world, not or living, yeah, live in the world but not of it, and people that were living of the world and doing the things that are in it, so pretty much corrupting their faith. So he's good at like correcting people and pointing stuff out and saying, "Hey, you shouldn't do that," but this is how you can correct those things. So, first part I'm going to read from is James 1, 2 through 4. I'm reading from the New Living Translation for my new Bible. So James says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has the chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing." So I think that's pretty cool because most people think about trials and temptations, and when you're going through hard stuff, they say, "Oh, this is terrible." I mean, what good can come from, say, losing a job or getting a divorce or having a friend to get really sick or put in the hospital? And some people even go as far as to say that it is God doing the harm. But if you look over at uh, 1 James 13, James says, "And remember, when you are being tempted, do not say, 'God is tempting me,' for God is never tempted to do wrong, and he never tempts anyone else." So then, going back to verse 3. Oh yeah, I have a link somewhere for the Bible if you guys don't have one. Bam. Look at that. Paperboy's putting it out there. So verse 3, for or you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. In other words, God may uh, uh, provide some times that seem a little rough, but there's never without meaning. There's always something behind it. So say if you lose a job, it seems terrible at first, and you might go to God and say, "Why did you take that job from me? It's what I needed to provide for my family." And we don't always know what God's intentions are, but he always has something good that comes out of the bad. There's a parable about refining metals. Like when you get iron, there's a bunch of gross stuff on it, like old rocks and dirt and stuff you don't want on it. So how they refine the iron to make it in its purest form is they burn it and liquefy it, and it burns off all the impurities of the metal. So this parable can be related to us, that we are put in the fire, which is trials, and to burn off our impurities. We may become more righteous and Christ-like. So then let's move on to verse 4. So endurance growing. So let your endurance grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you'll be perfect and complete, needing nothing. once you have good endurance and you've been able to resist cursing God from the trials and stuff, you're able to see that it's to benefit you. You'll be a mature Christian in your faith. Then another part in James that talks about trials and stuff is verse 12 through, just verse 12, which says, God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. Afterwards, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. So in other words, once you endure your trials, you'll be blessed. That's kind of like the good that comes out of the bad, being blessed by God. And after those trials, you will receive the crown of life, which is a ticket to heaven. If you can survive through the trials, and remember that all through the pain and the good times and the bad times, that God is still number one in your life. You get the crown of life, which is trip to heaven. Any comments?
Yes. The crown of life being the reward. Where is that referenced? I know I've seen it.
In verse 12, near the ends of it, near the end of verse 12.
Ah ha ha. See it. Thank you.
I'm reading from the NLT. I want to look it up in my NIV Bible really quick. See if there's a different translation. It says, Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life the Lord has promised to those who love him. So yeah, still the crown of life.
Okay,
ChickinMonkey.
so I'm noticing something here. Okay, so it says when trouble comes your way, let it be an opportunity for joy. Okay, it's not saying if, it's saying when it happens because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
When your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow, and when your endurance is fully developed, you will be strong in character. It's all when, like it's gonna happen.
Was I
You're
saying if?
right.
Oh, I was saying if.
No, 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 no. I'm saying that it doesn't say if, that
Oh,
it's saying when. But I think it's also something that we have to work on and rely on God for. I don't think
yeah.
it's something that is innately, it's inherent to us, like we're born with it.
Yeah. There's never going to be anyone that's like, oh, I have a perfect life 24/7 the entire time. I mean, on the outside, it may look like that, but on the inside, people really have stuff going on. There's, of course, there's going to be some times and it feels like everything's going right, but those times don't last forever. There's highs and lows. Like, you go all the way back to the book of Job. This is like my good example. If I can find it. But the book of Job starts out as in the land of Uz or Uz, however you pronounce the word Uzi. There was a righteous man named Job. Oh, here it is. Almost. Oh, skipped too far. Yeah, okay. So in the land of Uz, there lived a man whose name was Job. This man was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. So he was perfect servant of God. I mean, he feared him. He was blameless and upright. He was a good man. He raised good people. He had a good family. And he was pretty wealthy. It says he owned 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 donkeys. And he had a large number of servants. So he was blessed abundantly by God. And God really liked Job because he was a good guy. But one day, Satan says in verse 12, or chapter 1, verse 12, the Lord, no wait, I went too far. Okay, chapter 1, verse 9. Satan says, "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied, "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that the flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. Now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." So Satan's trying to get Job he wants to take everything from Job, because he says that once Job loses everything and he has a crummy life, he's going to start cursing God because he can't handle the trials of life.
And that's how most people react
Yeah,
when their comforts are taken away from them, or when something tragic happens. The first thing they want to do is throw their hands up and curse God.
yeah, it's like, oh, he controls everything. It's his fault. It must be his fault. But if you look back to James 1:13, it says God doesn't tempt anyone. He doesn't, yeah, he's not going to cause you to become sinful. So then, uh, everything gets taken away from Job. Like his family, they all get killed. His servants, they get taken out. His flocks, they all get killed. His fields get burned up. I mean, his house, it caved in on his family when they were eating. They all died. I mean, he had a really rough life. Wait, some of his family survived, but a bunch of them died. Let me read through this really quick. They took his camels, his oxen, his donkeys, servants. Yeah, it says in verse 19, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the house. It collapsed on his family, and they are dead. And then Job, in verse 21, he says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. So I think that's pretty cool that he had everything, and then in a matter of seconds, or not really seconds, in a very short period of time, he lost everything, but he praised God throughout the whole thing. I mean, it would be hard for me to do that. It'd be pretty upsetting to
It's
lose all
difficult
that
for
stuff.
anybody to do that.
Yeah. And it says in verse 22 to clarify it, in all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So he stayed righteous and blameless before God. Like it says in verse 1. So I guess that's kind of my piece on trials and temptations. So then I guess uh, after trials and temptations, James talks about wisdom and speaking wisely. So I guess Sporks, make a new heading. Wisdom. Speaking wisely. I kind of skipped around in the first part because I'm kind of looking at verses 1 through, or just all of chapter 1. Kind of does trials in parts, wisdom in parts, and then, yeah, it's mainly trials and wisdom and living your faith. Kind of skips around. I'm not looking at chapter 2 yet. So verse 5, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking, but when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. So it says if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. That's why, like in my prayer requests, I usually put wisdom, because it's like, hey, I could always use some more knowledge of the Bible and wisdom, like discernment to know what's right and what's wrong, how to live life.
And I think it's important to state that there is a fact or a difference between wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah, like, yeah. Wisdom is knowing what's right and wrong, like morals and what to do. Like Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived, and it says, and God said, I will make no other as wise as you. Solomon is the wisest man that ever lived on the earth. So it would have been pretty cool to meet him. But I guess you gotta wait till you're in heaven to meet him. You'd be like, oh, wisdom. Wisdom juices flowing. But anyways. So I guess it's always good to ask for wisdom. Because he's not gonna deny you wisdom. He's not gonna make you someone that doesn't know anything about his word, because he wants you to know what's been written for you. The Bible is God's toolbook so that you may be equipped to go and make disciples of all nations, like it says in Matthew 28. That was the last words of Jesus when he was on the earth. Go and make disciples of all nations, teaching and baptizing them in the name of Jesus, in my name. I mean, it's pretty important stuff. That's verse 5 through 6. Well, it's in verse 6 it says, but when you ask him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. So don't be putting a bunch of time into other things, or like, okay, putting your time in other things like idolizing things. Say you idolize wanting to buy a new car and it's like all you can think about, and then God's kind of off to the side and you ask him for all this stuff. Like you keep asking him for a car and you're idolizing the car. God's gonna say, well, no, you gotta put me first and then we'll talk about it. You gotta have your faith and your hope and your mind on God. You can't be serving two masters.
That's correct. And everything needs to be for his glory.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants to ask for stuff, but nobody wants to say thank you or recognize their provider.
Oh yeah. Then continue in verse 6. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. I kind of like this translation. The New Living Translation, I think. 'Cause I'll read that verse 6 in NIV. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. So, in the NIV, it says, the one who doubts. But in the New Living Translation, it says the one with divided loyalty. So I guess when you have divided loyalty, when you serve two masters, you're going to be serving one more than the other. I forgot where that verse is at, where it talks about you can't serve two masters because you'll end up loving one and hating the other. I think it's a parable of Jesus. So it's in one of the Gospels.
Matthew 6:24.
Did you Google that? Dinner. You can't use Google. I was gonna say Matthew, because lots of good
Yeah.
stuff is in Matthew.
Says no
I
one can
like.
serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You
Oh
cannot
yeah,
serve both God and money, or the
paraphrasing right
things
there.
that money can buy. I added that.
Oh yeah. Sporks, you can't add onto the Bible. That's a sin.
I wasn't. I was just adding it to the conversation.
Let's see. 7. Verse 7. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. That's New Living, or NIV. Oh, they're exactly the same. NLT and NIV. Well, not exactly, but there's no big differences. So, if you don't have faith, you're not being faithful to God. So why should he provide you with what you want? In verse 8, their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they are unstable in everything that they do. That's NLT. So NIV it says double-minded. NIV is says it's their loyalty is between God and the world. So it goes again with you can't serve two masters. What? You still here, Chicken Monkey? Okay. One second. Calvin, can you please be quiet? I don't want to see your butt. Oh, you heard that?
Oh.
Told you. It gets kind of weird. Okay, one second. So let's move on to the next point with like wisdom, speaking it. Okay, so it starts at verse 19. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters, you must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce righteousness, or does not produce the righteousness that God desires. So get rid of all the filth and evil in your lives, and humbly accept the word of God. Accept the word God has planted in your hearts, for it has the power to save your souls. Then my Bible actually came highlighted with James 1:19, being quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
Yeah, we could all use that advice.
Especially Chicken Monkey. Whenever I tell him I can't come online, he's like, "What?"
He's quick to get angry.
Yeah, Chicken
Just
Monkey.
kidding.
Oh, I typed a button. Okay, so then verse 22. But don't just listen to God's word, you must do what it says, otherwise you are only fooling yourselves. For if you listen to the word, and don't obey it, it's like glancing at your face in a mirror. You see yourself, walk away, and forget what you look like. But if you look carefully into the perfect laws that sets you free, and if you do what it says, and don't forget what you heard, then God will bless you for doing it.
Yep. Obey, obey, obey. Don't just listen to it, but put it into practice. Let your actions reflect. Like how they say, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. If you are obeying the word of God, it's going to show, like through your actions, through your words, your deeds, your thoughts. It's going to show.
Yeah, there's this quote that we were sharing at my youth group. It says, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it all. But like, preach the gospel to all nations, and when necessary, use words. Okay, so now, verse, or chapter 1, verse 26. If you claim to be religious, but don't control your tongue, you are fooling yourself, and your religion is worthless. Pure and genuine religion, in the sight of God the Father, means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. I thought verse 26 was pretty big. So it's pretty much saying if you run your mouth all the time and curse people, it's not being a Christian. It's not being religious.
Yep, and
But
that
then again,
ties back to
yeah,
Ephesians 4:29 and Ephesians 5:4.
I hear lots of people say well, they say I'm not religious because it makes them sound kind of like a Pharisee. I'm a Christian, I follow God. I wouldn't say it's a religion, I say it's a lifestyle, which I kind of agree with that because if you say religion, it kind of puts you with all the other people that believe stuff. It's something more, it's a lifestyle. I don't know. So, pretty much, don't run your mouth or your religion is worthless. That's kind of like, don't ruin your self-image. Because if you're the type of person that goes to parties or like drinking and that type of stuff, and Sundays you're like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, I can pray for you and stuff, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? No, wait, you were just at that party yesterday. So don't don't taint your self-image. Don't uh, uh, yeah.
Yeah, I
Don't
like the
destroy
end
your
of my
integrity.
the King James version for verse 27 says to keep himself unspotted from the world. And I've heard it said unstained as well.
Be in the
It goes back to
spotless
the
lamb.
whole, yeah, be in the world but not of the world. We're not of this world.
Oh yeah. Have you heard the song "This Is Not Where I Belong"?
I think so. Yes.
Oh, I'm about to put a link in the description.
Oh no, no, no.
Oh, there's a Facebook message. Oh no, that doesn't matter. I think it's by Building 429 is I listen it to, or is where I listen to it. Official music video. This is for you, ChickinMonkey. Official. There you go. Oh, okay. See, where do we go to now? Oh, yep. So now we're on verse 26. Oh no, 27. So pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress, refusing to let the world corrupt you. Like orphans and widows were considered like pretty much the poor, impoverished people of society because the orphans they didn't have parents, they had no one to take care of them. So unless there was an orphanage around, which I don't know, I'm not exactly sure if there was at that time period. There probably was some sort of thing going on, but they didn't have parents, so they had a crummy life. And widows, uh, yeah, widow refers to a woman without a husband, right? Or could it be a husband without a wife?
That would be a widower.
Oh, so a widower is a husband,
Sure,
a
why not?
dude. Okay, yeah. So the widow, they didn't really have any means of acquiring money or anything because usually the men do like they go out and tend the fields and stuff and do the woodworking, and the women just kind of stayed at home and were loyal to their husband at that time period. So, because you didn't really see like women out in the fields or stuff. Actually, well, go back to Haggai. She was a widow that went out in the field, and well, she cleaned up after the people were done in the fields. I think it's first in Haggai. No. Leviticus, going back to the laws. You're probably going to Google this and find it before me. But it talks about people that work in the fields and plow the fields, not to plow it twice or pick up anything that you missed. And whatever you leave it for the birds and the widows and the orphans to come and clean up. And Haggai, she talks about how she would go out in the fields and get food because she didn't have any food or anyone to help her out. Find the book of Haggai. There's a lot of books in the Old Testament. That's what you're supposed to do when you plow the field. Plow it once, and if you leave anything behind, you're not allowed to pick it up. Because it's for birds and orphans and widows and people that don't have any food. There's a little side note for you. So that ends chapter 1. We didn't read through the whole thing. I just kind of took the two parts out of it. Trials and perseverance and well, trials, perseverance kind of with faith and wisdom. And I guess temptation, it talks about temptation alongside uh, trials and getting tested. And it says in verse 14, temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions, and when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. So if we have temptations in our life, we should try to remove them because they'll just become bigger and more of a problem. And then it'll just consume our life with sin, and we'll be living in the world and of the world. And in the end, that leads to life not in heaven, but in hell. So it's
And
important
we'll have
to
no one to blame but
take care of this.
ourselves.
Yep. Then it says, after that kind of depressing note, it says in verse 16, so don't be misled, my dear brothers and sisters. Whatever is good and perfect comes down to us from God our Father, who created all the lights in the heavens. He never changes or casts a shifting shadow. He chose to give birth to us by giving us his true word, and we, out of all creation, became his prized possession. You know what sets us apart from like mammals, land animals and stuff? I got everything else of God's creation. Like when he
Do
created
tell.
us. Okay. Scrolling from James to Genesis. 1,300 pages earlier. Well, when God was creating mankind, it says he. Let me find it. Like early Genesis creation. Chapter 1. Okay. So Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, and all wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." So God created human beings in his own image. So first off, we were made in his own image. He didn't make like donkeys and birds and unicorns to look like him. So that's
Unicorns.
the first part. Yeah, that's the first part that sets us apart. Let's see, I'm trying to see where it says. I don't think it says in the New Living Translation, but it says, or maybe I looked over it. But God formed us out of the dirt by hand and breathed the breath of life into us. He just spoke everything else into existence, but he actually used his hands to shape us and breathed his breath into our lungs. So that, to me, that's more significant because he spoke everything else into existence, but yet he took the time to make us individually. So we're made in his own image, and he by hand made us and designed us out of dirt. I mean, think about that. Like a pile of dirt, make something out of it besides dirt. Can't do that. Oh, I can make a mud pie. No, mud pies don't count. It's dirt. But God was able to make something as sophisticated as a human body, which, if you really think about it, like the circulatory system and how blood pumps throughout your body and veins, and like your nose and how you breathe, and your digestive system, and he made all that out of like, he's got to be a really creative thinker to come up with all that stuff. He made it all in 7 days, so I don't know, that's kind of crazy. But not for God, because he's God. Oh yeah. So I guess any comments on James chapter 1 or questions?
No.
This is like the third or fourth time we've done James chapter 1. Oh, Sporks. Like that music. Is that the This Is Not Where I Belong, or is that a different song? What song is that? Hey, canción.
Si, señor.
What song is that? Was that the This Is Not Where I Belong?
Yes?
Oh, that was a long intro, because I thought it was. And then I'm like, where's the words? Maybe it's a Spork song.
No, no, no.
No, no, no.
Hi, y'all. This is ChickinMonkey.
Gotta eat that hair leg. So what do you do with the recordings? Like, I know how to record stuff, but then can you do anything when they're done?
Oh, you'll see.
Oh yeah, you can put it on the clan page and then everyone can listen in. It's an hour long, so I doubt
Yeah.
anyone would listen to the whole thing.
So maybe they won't get to the part where we're talking about putting it on the clan page.
Hopefully they
Like
don't
this
get to the
part
hairy
right
leg
here.
part. Yeah, because that
Yeah.
would be weird.
Is
Hey
anybody
Dubs.
listening right now? Anybody? Hello?
Hello. I like ChickinMonkey's mustache.
Okay, that's just weird.
Okay.
Okay, if
I guess
anybody is
next
actually listening to this recording, I want you to comment a very specific word. And here's the word.
mustache. Free mustache
No,
ride.
don't put mustache. Put
Ride the mustache.
puddin' tater.
Wait, how do you spell that?
That's Puddin space
Tater?
Tater. Puddin' tater.
Okay, if you do, I'm gonna give you a pina colada M&M. No, what was that M&M? Oh, coconut M&M.
Yeah, I had a coconut M&M, but I'm out of coconut
Oh,
M&Ms. I will send you a handwritten card thanking you for your time and your patience and for responding puddin' tater. I mean,
I'll send you a creepy voice recording.
well, that's nothing new. I'm I think I'm gonna stop recording now.
Yeah.
Puddin' tater.